back to CTN. I'm your host, Robert Van Sluten. In this episode, we're going to talk about the various device screens and the effect that bars have: status bar, tab bar, navigation bar, toolbar, and so on layout. In terms of devices, looking at the iPhone from the 4 series to the 5 series, I'm not going back before then. The 4 series is a 3.5 inch screen. The 4 series is a 4 inch screen. Now, in terms of the sizes, there's CG points. In other words, from the standpoint of laying out views and drawing in Core Graphics, there are points and there's pixels. There's twice as many pixels in both directions as there are points. And this is an artifact of supporting both Retina and non-Retina. The iPhone 4 is 480 by 320 points, for example, and number of pixels is 960 by 640. Now, in terms of the iPad and the iPad mini have the same number of points and the same number of pixels. In other words, taking an iPad 9.7 inch, it's 1024 by 768. The number of pixels is 1024 by 768 because we're talking non-Retina. Now you notice the numbers are the same for the Mini, even though it's a smaller screen. So you have a higher pixel density, but in terms of design, it's the same. Your layouts and everything else don't change. It's just the screen is shrunk so much, somewhat, but it has the same number of points and the same number of pixels. In the case of the iPad Air and the iPad Mini Retina, it's the same situation as it is for the iPhone in the sense that, well, you get 1024 768 points, but you have double the number of pixels in both directions. This is why you get into the case of having to have 2x images, because if you have a JPEG, for instance, you want it to look good on Retina versus possibly making it smaller for non-Retina. It's the same sort of situation exists with icons and so on. Now, we get into the whole thing of bars. We talked about this in the last episode. We have status bar, we have navigation bar, tab bar, and toolbar. These things have heights. So in other words, the status bar takes up 20 points of the top of the screen. A navigation bar under it would be 44. A tab bar is somewhat bigger, it's 48. And a toolbar is the same height as a navigation bar. Let's go over to Xcode. What I have is a single view project, iPhone only. We just take a look at a few things. I have the storyboard up here. There is a button down in the lower right hand side here on the left of the series of these buttons that controls whether I am dealing with a 4 inch or 3.5 inch iPhone. Now if I select the background view and I take a look at the size inspector, let's make sure this is selected here, you'll notice the size is 320 by 480, which is consistent with the 3.5 inch. If I go to 4 inch, we're up to 320 by 568. Now, if I go over and I take a label and I drag it in, without using auto layout, what happens is the view is placed somewhere in the coordinate space, and regardless of the screen aspect ratio, orientation, so on and so forth, that's why you have problems with rotation, for example. You can take a look at the size inspector and you'd actually see where this thing is. its size and position. If I move it up to the upper left-hand corner, I can violate the guidelines. In fact, I could go over and I could specifically say, I want this at location 0, 0. And it will do that. If I go ahead and run this, build and run, you'll notice the label is overlapping with the status bar. Now the point I'm trying to make is that you have to take into account the bars when doing design. Let's stop this. I will also note that if you create a universal or an iPad application, you can also check the size of the background view like we did. And in addition, if you drag in the various bars, you can pull in a status bar, toolbar, navigation bar. You could take a look at those and check their sizes in the size inspector. The charts I showed earlier are on the website, cocotouchnetcast.com, as a PDF file in the Downloads tab. That's it. Thanks for watching.